Hello, 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 and welcome to Walk, Talk, Health. Nearly all the diseases we face in today's modern society are caused by two main things: DNA damage and inflammation. As the channel name suggests, you and I are going to take an amazing walk today on a trail, and we're going to discuss health to address these things. But if you combine the subject we talk about over a series of these walk and talks, it can significantly improve your health, well-being, longevity, and you really can live longer, healthier. So where are we today? We're at the Sonoma Overlook Trail in Sonoma, California. And we're going to be discussing a compound that our body actually makes, but not in sufficient enough quantity, called creatine. We're going to look at the benefits of creatine and why it's so important for our health. We're going to talk about how it actually achieves those health benefits. And finally, we'll discuss what those levels of creatine need to be and how you go about achieving those levels for maximum health, longevity. Stick with me and enjoy the trail. As I mentioned a minute ago, our bodies actually produce creatine. They produce between 1 and 2 grams per day, and it's produced in the liver, kidneys, and in the brain. And the very fact that our bodies produce creatine should tell you everything you need to know. It's clearly important. However, it doesn't produce anywhere near enough in terms of the body's needs, and it expects us to acquire the additional creatine through our diet mainly. Creatine's been studied literally for decades, so we know it's safe. There are some minor side effects that a few people suffer from. We'll get into that again later on, but we know from a health point of view it's a safe compound. So creatine actually increases muscle energy, the energy the muscles need to operate, if you have the correct amount of creatine, by up to 10%. It also increases the muscle power output in terms of its performance by up to 15%. That's why quite often you hear creatine associated with athletes and bodybuilders. It also helps the muscles recover and repair, which after certainly a strenuous workout, even a walk like today, is a good thing. Creatine helps us get a good night's sleep. Why is that important? Well, during our sleep cycle, we go through 3 stages of sleep. We go through deep sleep, REM sleep, and light sleep. The deep sleep is the most important. That's when the body actually repairs itself. You have to go into a pretty deep sleep, clearly from the name suggests, before that repair occurs. So if you have a bad night's sleep, typically you don't get that deep sleep, and therefore you don't get the repairs. So creatine, very important in terms of helping us get that deep sleep. The right balance and quantity of creatine in our body also, very importantly, helps us with cognitive function, focus, concentration, and ultimately that helps with things like, and been proven from these studies, to help with things like Alzheimer's prevention and depression. Creatine has been shown to reduce glucose spikes, and this is a big one. Covered this many times in terms of type 2 diabetes and how when we consume too many carbs and sugars, our body blood starts to thicken. In response to that, it produces insulin. That insulin's job is to remove the glucose from the body and store it in the muscles and other organs, and then finally in our fat. But insulin, unfortunately, is inflammatory, and we know that inflammation causes disease. So keeping those spikes to a minimum is very important. Importantly though, and ironically, it's also involved in the production of enzyme and hormones such as insulin. But as I say, even though it's inflammatory, we could not live without insulin in our body in terms of controlling that blood sugar level. For me, this next one is a biggie. It helps the health and structural integrity of every cell in our body. All our cells have a membrane around them. That membrane has to be hydrated, and it has to allow the correct nutrients and chemicals produced by our body, proteins, etc., to enter the cells to receive their nutrients and instruction. If the membrane isn't healthy, then obviously we get less nutrients, less of the benefits get to where they need to go, and again that causes problems in our body and ultimately ends up with disease and illness. Creatine has been proven to help with antioxidation, reducing the oxidative stress caused by the different processes that go on in our body. When we burn energy, ATP and oxygen to, for example, power the muscles, the byproduct causes inflammation, and we know that inflammation causes disease. So using creatine to reduce that oxidation, or the effects of oxidation, again is an amazing thing. Finally, the biggest one for me is its effect on our mitochondria. In our cell, we have, in every cell of our body, we have mitochondria. Their sole function is to produce energy. So every cell function, from repair, growth, is powered by the energy they produce. Mitochondria need ATP to produce that energy. They burn that with oxygen, in the same way a car engine uses petrol and air to make the power for the engine. Once the ATP is used, it breaks down into a different compound that the mitochondria can't use. Creatine actually recycles this broken down compound back into ATP. Which is amazing, right? The body doesn't have to produce new ATP, it rescues, if you like, the broken down compound. This is important because it means that ATP is now more readily available to the mitochondria to do that all-important job and role of producing energy to drive all the processes in our body. Like with a lot of these walks, there's some beautiful trees. So how does creatine actually achieve these amazing benefits? Well, it's because it's made up of three very important essential enzymes. These enzymes are building blocks for proteins, again previously covered. Here's the start of the views. We're about halfway up. Not sure actually what the elevation of this walk is. I'll check that out and put the information up on the video. The proteins made with the help of creatine do things like repair muscle tissue. They actually build and grow new muscle tissue. They are actually responsible for the synthesis of the insulin, and they support our immune system. And finally, they actually are responsible for nutrient transport. So now let's move on to where do we get creatine from, and ideally what should we be looking to consume on a daily basis in terms of creatine levels. Our body, as I said at the beginning, produces about 1 to 2 grams. You can get creatine from red meats and fish. To give you an example, a pound of red meat will give you roughly another 1 to 2 grams of creatine. This is still on the low side. I personally take 10 grams per day, in addition to the creatine that I receive from my nutrients in my diet. What I actually choose to take is something called creatine monohydrate. There are 3 forms of creatine. Some of them are more readily available to the body and quicker absorbed, but the creatine monohydrate is very, very reasonably priced. In fact, quite honestly, it's cheap, and it does the job just as well. It just takes a bit longer to get into your body. You may have to load up on the creatine initially for maybe a week, take a higher dose of maybe 15 to 20 grams, and then drop back to anywhere between 5 and 10 grams. So personally, I choose to go with 10 grams and I feel great on it. Actually increase my dose to 15 to 20 grams if I've had a bad night's sleep, or after jet lag, you know, when your brain's feeling a bit groggy. And it's hard to explain, but it's like an instant pick-me-up. The brain energy comes back, the focus comes back, and it negates the feelings you get from that sleep deprivation. Creatine, for a very small percentage of people, can cause upset stomach. There have been allergic reactions reported, but again, very, very few and far between. Certainly the studies carried out on it didn't actually come across this. But as always, I'd recommend you speak to your doctor before taking any new supplements or changing a routine. Specifically in this instance, if you already have kidney issues, kidney disease, creatine is something that you should definitely discuss with your doctor if that's the case. It's beautiful through here. I just love the way the trees kind of hug the path. There are quite a few stones and rocks, so be careful with your footing. But in terms of a walk, I can highly recommend it. It's not a particularly long one. It's, I think, about 1.5 miles. You go to the top of the mountain. There's a loop at the top, which we'll get to. And then you come back down the same trail you started off at. But the views from the top are pretty amazing. We'll get to see some of that shortly. And I can highly recommend it. So it's a beautiful trail. Okay, it's time to ask for a big favour. This channel is in no way monetized. Its sole purpose is to reach as many people as I can to help them on their health journey. So can I ask you please to hit the like button and subscribe, make a comment. The comments in particular are very important. The algorithm looks at these things and decides how many people to push it out to based on the interaction the videos get. So the more you do that, the more you help me achieve my goal of reaching more people so that they in turn can live longer, healthier. Huge great rocks sticking out as you climb towards the top. Again, it's amazing how they maintain these parks in California, Northern California at least. Building all these steps to make it easy for hikers. Getting near the top now, and when we get to the top, there's the loop trail I mentioned at the beginning. Again, pretty short, but yep, here you go. This is the start of the loop trail, and the overlook, and you get a sense of just how high up we are now. Okay, let's recap. So our body naturally produces creatine, 1 to 2 grams in the kidney, liver and brain. Very important, clearly therefore, to the body. We know that it helps build proteins, and those proteins are responsible for a number of processes within the body. So creatine itself, as a result of interacting with those proteins, is helping us in things like muscle repair, increase muscle output, increase muscle energy. We know it improves our cognitive abilities, focus and concentration, and helps to reduce things like depression and the chances of Alzheimer's. Creatine aids in a good night's sleep and that all-important deep sleep where our body repairs itself. It helps cell membrane integrity, very important for nutrients, etc., to successfully pass through the membrane into the cell. It helps reduce glucose spikes and therefore the amount of insulin our body produces, keeping that inflammation lower and therefore reducing the chances of overall disease within our body. It reduces oxidative stress, and the big one for me is it helps our mitochondria, the powerhouse of every cell in our body, by recycling ATP. It achieves all this by using the 3 enzymes that make up creatine and helping to build those all-important proteins. In terms of how do we get our creatine to the right levels, in addition to the 1 to 2 grams we produce, We can get creatine from meat and fish, typically 1 to 2 grams from a pound of red meat, and we can take a supplement. I personally take 10 grams a day, up that to 15 to 20 grams if I've had a bad night's sleep or I'm jet lagged and I need that extra cognitive boost. If nothing else, I hope I convince you to look into creatine, whether you increase your doses from natural sources like meat or whether you take a supplement. Particularly as we get older, our ability to produce the creatine reduces, so it's very important that you do look into it. Join me next time where I'm going to be discussing breath work in more detail. I've had some requests. I will prove to you just how valuable breathing techniques are in terms of the benefits to the human body, blood pressure, heart rate, all kinds of things that we will cover in the next video. Look forward to seeing you then.